Hold on, let me just double check that I'm correct in that. Hey guys, it's Cam from Craft and Tailored. In this episode of What Is On My Wrist, we are talking about a Rolex GMT reference 16750 matte dial. And we kind of reviewed the 16750 matte dial before. We had a video that we did where we talked about all of the transitional matte dial references within the Rolex Sport range, and I'll provide a link up here so that you guys can check that out. But you know, we haven't done a dedicated video for the 16750. It's a watch that has really kind of increased in popularity and desirability over the past couple years. And so I figured we had a great example in, why not dedicate an entire episode to the 16750 to kind of talk about this reference in specific as it relates to the matte dials, and to talk a little bit about the 16750 kind of just holistically. So let's get into the details. Before we do, if you guys could do us a favor, like, comment, and of course subscribe. By subscribing, it helps us continue to produce this awesome content for you guys, and it allows you to stay in the loop as to when our new episodes are coming out and all that fun stuff. So let's get into the details. What's really cool about this specific GMT is that it's a very transitional model. In 1979, Rolex was transitioning a lot of the models from the 4-digit range and the sport range into the 5-digit range, and the GMT got a bit of an upgrade with the reference 16750 being released. What's kind of cool about the 16750 is that we've got two dial variants. The first dial variant is this, which is a matte dial, which basically is a very similar dial to the 1675, as opposed to the later 16750 dial, which are glossy with the white gold surrounds that are tritium luminous filled. The matte dial 16750s are very much desirable because they kind of sit in between the more contemporary dial variants that we see in Rolex today. So that's why the matte dial 16750s are kind of desirable and have developed a cult-like following over the past few years. And it was kind of a natural progression for the GMT reference as a whole. Basically, there's three technical improvements. The first big improvement is a quick set date. So the 16750 featured the 3075 caliber Rolex movement, which offers a quick set date. With the caliber 3075, you have basically three positions of the crown and stem that operate the watch. If you basically unlock the crown in position 0 or 1, you can basically charge the mainspring and wind the watch. In the first click out, by rolling the crown counterclockwise, you can quickly jump the date, which is a big advancement. And then in the last position, or crown all the way out, you basically can then, set the time on the watch. So that was kind of a big advancement with the introduction of the 3075. The other thing too is the movement beats at 28,800 beats per hour, as opposed to the 19,800 BPH of the movements that you would find in a 1675. Essentially, higher beats per hour means that the watch is going to be more accurate in terms of its ability to keep and retain time. The other thing too is that the case and the natural progression of Rolex's finishing and milling capability in 1979, the water resistance was increased from 50 meters to 100 meters with this watch. I don't know if I would really test that. The watch is definitely waterproof, being that it's a Rolex Oyster case with a locking twin lock crown. So those are kind of the main technical differences between the 16750 and the 1675. What's cool about the matte dial 16750 reference is that they were only produced from really 1979 until about 1984. That's when we see the transition for most Rolex transitional sport models that bear the matte dial to kind of the transition over to the more contemporary, modern, glossy, white gold, luminous filled dials. The watches were actually both offered on both an Oyster bracelet like this or a D-Link Jubilee. I don't really have a preference. I like Oyster and Jubilees. That's kind of, I guess, the technical history, and you can kind of use that as a guide, I suppose, if you're looking at buying a 16750. So let's talk about this specific example from 1983. because it is a stunner of an example. It's probably one of the nicest matte dial 16750s that we've ever had in our inventory. This one bears an original 78360 Oyster bracelet with 580 ends, showing very minimal stretch, if any at all. The case is in absolutely stunning condition, maintaining its case geometry. No real issues with the dial to speak of. Really nice kind of eggshell, kind of creamy lume and matching hands. It's a stunning example overall. The case is 40 millimeters on wrist. It wears really nicely. And a lot of these watches I think are desirable for guys because they're birth year watches. And also I think that there's a lot of kind of special features while also retaining, I guess, a little bit more of a classic vintage Rolex feel, especially in the sport range of watches. So again, this is a superb example. I'll provide a link in the description below so that you can check this out as well as other 16750s. And let me know what you like. Do you like the matte dial or do you like the more contemporary, white gold surrounds? I actually kind of like both independently. So I don't know if I necessarily have a preference. I love this watch because it is in such superb condition and it really is a benchmark example for what a matte dial 16750 should look like and kind of be. They're definitely a watch that is increasing in terms of its value and in terms of its desirability, thus making them much more collectible. And so we're having a hard time sourcing them because ultimately what's happening is you guys are buying them and you're putting them on your wrist and they're going into the collection and they're not getting flipped back out into the market. So in any case, thanks guys for tuning in. If you've got watch questions, we're here and happy to help. Drop us a line at info@craftandtailored.com. If you're not doing so already, follow us on Instagram @craftandtailored and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Appreciate you guys. See you in the next one.